Welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. Today we're talking about Alzheimer's, a program to prevent it and even reverse the symptoms. The book is The End of Alzheimer's Program by Dr. Dale Bredesen, which goes on sale August 18th, but is available now for pre-order. I met a woman diagnosed with Alzheimer's who tried the program and experienced great results. Take a look.
These days, 69-year-old Sally Weinrich smiles almost all the time, ever since her Alzheimer's symptoms reversed.
Life is good. I like being able to remember, to connect the dots, because I've experienced the absence of thinking, and that is scary.
Her husband, Martin, equally overjoyed.
She has come back.
Sally's not alone. Hundreds of patients with mild to moderate cognitive impairment experience never-before-seen improvements thanks to a revolutionary treatment developed by Dr. Dale Bredesen.
Alzheimer's disease is no longer a mystery. You don't have to say, we don't know why you get it, we don't know what to do about it. We do know why you get it, we do know what to do about it, and we know how to prevent it.
After 30 years of research, Dr. Bredesen is sharing his treatment in the book, The End of Alzheimer's, as well as in medical journals. Just like a roof with 36 holes can only work when all 36 are repaired, Dr. Bredesen says there are 36 causes of Alzheimer's, which must all be addressed.
If there are specific exposures, you want to get rid of those. If there are specific nutritional changes, you want to address those. If there are hormonal changes, you want to address those. If there are inflammatory changes.
Sally and Martin sensed trouble when she began forgetting things, like her grandchildren's names and her purse at the grocery. A test confirmed early stages of Alzheimer's.
It was a total sense of hopelessness. A wish to die and not want to live, because as a nurse, I've cared for Alzheimer's patients, and I also have had family members who I love dearly who've had advanced Alzheimer's and who died from Alzheimer's, in fact.
So, of course, I was scared.
Martin, a scientific researcher, scoured the internet for help. He found Dr. Bredesen's protocol and got Sally on board.
You don't want to wait until it's very late in the game. The earlier the better, and the more likely you're going to see dramatic improvements.
Sally got what Dr. Bredesen calls a cognoscopy, blood work, genetic tests, and more to identify where she was when it came to Alzheimer's 36 causes.
All of us should have a cognoscopy when we get to 45 or more, just as we get a colonoscopy when we're 50. Everybody knows that.
Sally's results pinpointed specific areas of concern.
Each person's program is different, so we developed a computerized algorithm so that you can look at all the different contributors for each person, identify.
The next step for Sally, tailor-made treatment that zeroes in on where she needs improvement. In her case, that meant certain medicines, vitamins, and supplements, more sleep, less stress.
And the first thing I started doing was spending, because Dr. Bredesen talks about decreasing stress, was spending 30 minutes each morning praying. I immediately saw improvement in what I could recall. Next thing I did was increase my exercise. I immediately saw improvement in my thinking.
Sally eats a mildly ketogenic diet as part of her treatment. That means no sugar and very few other carbohydrates.
When I am ketogenic, my brain thinks clearer than when I'm not ketogenic.
Sally eliminated exposure to certain toxins like mold and pesticides, addressed hidden infections in her body, and much more.
I have not gone to town and forgotten my pocketbook since I've started this program. Hallelujah, because I need my credit card.
It takes typically 3 to 6 months, but we see unprecedented improvements in their scores, in their ability to go back to work, interact with their families, increases in their hippocampal volumes, things like that.
When it comes to sustainability, Dr. Bredesen says people who have been on the program for 5 years now are still mentally fit. So while genetics mean an estimated 75 million Americans are predisposed to Alzheimer's, like Sally Weinrich, Dr. Dale Bredesen says they no longer have to fear being tested, because now there's something they can do about it.
The fear is pretty much gone. The doubt is pretty much gone. And that's the real Sally. That's who God and Dale Bredesen have given back to me.
Joining me now is Dr. Dale Bredesen. Great to see you again, Dr. Bredesen. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Lori.
Well, this new book, The End of Alzheimer's Program, is a follow-up to your best-selling book, The End of Alzheimer's. What's different about this new book from the first one?
Yeah, this is actually completely different in that the first one was a conceptual book. It's about here's how the science works. Here's why for the first time we can actually have an impact on cognitive decline. Here are the things to look at, et cetera. A lot of people after that asked, okay, what about details? Where do we go? What are the URLs? What do we buy? What do we look at? What are the workarounds if things aren't working, et cetera? And so actually I'm enthusiastic about this because we did something very different. We brought in, there are 3 of us, one person who is a daily user, Julie G., who has done very, very well and is herself ApoE44, which is the highest risk for Alzheimer's, and has done now 8 years on the program doing very, very well, along with my wife, Dr. Aida Lasheen Bredesen, who is a clinician, and then, of course, the science. So we have a scientist, a clinician, and a daily user. And that really gives you a real-world view and a practical view of what can be done and what are the workarounds and what are the things that are the most crucial. When do you need to think about detoxification? When do you need to think about specific pathogens? When do you need to get into ketosis? What's the best way to do that? On and on. And of course, we also included all the things that we have learned since the first book over the last 3 years, looking at things that we didn't understand before as we're continuing to evolve this protocol.
We saw Sally's story, but many others have had a cognoscopy and based on those results have a tailor-made treatment plan based on your program. How many people so far have gone on your program and how advanced were they with Alzheimer's and what were the results?
Yeah, so over 5,000 people have now used this program, and they are all different levels. So the best that you want to get on as early as possible, of course. The earlier, the better. We have people who are on specifically for prevention. And then, so in those people, we want to have a cognoscopy, specifically blood tests, evaluation of your cognitive status, and then if you have symptoms, an MRI with volumetrics. And if you don't have symptoms, you don't need to have that. And those 5,000 people, some of them all the way to MoCA scores of 0 in late stage. Now, no surprise, the earlier that you get started, the easier it is to get positive outcomes. However, we have seen some people even in late stages with improvement. In 2018, we published 100 cases, documented cases, with before and after studies of cognition, improvements in electrophysiology, improvements in volume areas in the brain. So we're continuing with those studies. We don't have follow-up on enough people yet, but we're continuing. We're also, I should say, in the midst of the first trial in history in which, instead of predetermining a treatment, saying, okay, we're going to treat with this drug or that drug, we're instead looking at all of the different contributors to the cognitive decline for each person and then addressing those. And this is the way of the future. This is the way that people will be treating cognitive decline for years to come, because it really makes no sense to predetermine a treatment and then treat everyone the same. Because, as you know, there are different features, just as there was when you talked to Sally a few years ago. Specific features that were driving her decline. And I should add, Sally's doing great.
This is great information. Once again, the book is The End of Alzheimer's Program, on sale August 18th, available for pre-order now. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with more from Dr. Dale Bredesen.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
We're back with Dr. Dale Bredesen. The book is The End of Alzheimer's Program. Well, I'm sure a lot of people would love to try the program. The first step is getting a cognoscopy. How does one do that? And why is it important to get one as early as possible before you even have symptoms?
Yeah, because prevention is the way to go. You really don't want, when someone develops Alzheimer's disease, that's been shown repeatedly, there are about 20 years preceding that in which the underlying pathophysiology is occurring. And, people are noticing, oh, there might be a little senior moment here, or I might have forgotten this, but they kind of forget about it. And in fact, it's important to understand that. So you want to get in as early as possible. So we recommend that everyone who is 45 years of age or older consider getting a cognoscopy, and especially for anyone who has any Alzheimer's disease or dementia of any sort in their family, to get checked out early and get on prevention. That's going to be the best for you.
Why is insulin resistance such a problem when it comes to cognition? And can you describe why a daily fast is so important, including no food 3 hours before bedtime?
Yes, this is a great point, Lori. So there are about 80 million Americans who have insulin resistance, and most of us don't know it if we have it, unless we actually bother to check. So insulin turns out to be absolutely critical, and insulin resistance is associated with Alzheimer's risk going way up. The reason for that is because as we eat, we're eating diets that are often not the diets that we are designed to eat. In fact, our bodies don't do particularly well with some of the processed foods we eat and some of the high carbohydrate, especially high simple carbohydrate. Our bodies can handle about 15 grams or 20 grams of sugar per day. Many of us are eating 80 grams of sugar per day. So what happens with that is your sugar goes up. Sugar is actually relatively toxic to your body because the sugar molecules stick to many proteins, just like remoras on a shark. These things stick to these proteins, and what they do is they change the function of the protein, and they change the fact that the protein now becomes inflammatory. Your body recognizes this as a different protein. So you now have inflammation, which is a risk factor for Alzheimer's, and now you also develop insulin resistance. You can actually measure the chemical change in the neurons where the insulin, which is normally very supportive of these neurons, it's a so-called growth factor. It helps you to support your neuronal network. Now it is failing in its support. It's a little bit like runaway inflation. So whereas, you've got $5 at one point and it can do a lot, now $5 does virtually nothing. And that's the same situation with insulin in your brain. You are now resistant to it. And so now, in fact, you are at increased risk for loss. So now what we want to do is bring back this insulin sensitivity. And part of bringing that back, in fact, is the fasting that you mentioned. Fasting has turned out to be remarkable. And of course, this goes back to why so many people did it in the past. It improves blood pressure. It improves your insulin sensitivity. It lowers your risk for Alzheimer's. It slows the aging process. So all of these things are helpful. Now, again, be careful. If you're very thin, you don't have fat to burn, you've got to be careful about how much fasting you're doing. But in general, what we recommend is people do at least 12 hours. If you happen to know that you're ApoE4 positive, 75 million Americans are, then in fact you want to extend that to about 14 to 16 hours. So between finishing your dinner and beginning your breakfast, brunch, or lunch, you want to have a minimum of 12 hours to allow you to do things like autophagy. That's another thing, cleaning out the various damaged proteins from your brain, turning over the damaged mitochondria. These are the batteries of your cells. So there are a lot of positive aspects to this, all of which can help you. Part of what we call Alzheimer's disease is an energy failure. And so we're trying to improve that. Part of this also is helping to drive you into ketosis. And what do the ketones do? They enter your brain and serve as energy for your neurons.
All right, we'll pause for just a moment and be right back with Dr. Dale Bredesen. Stay with us.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man, come with...
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Continuing our discussion with Dr. Dale Bredesen, author of the new book, The End of Alzheimer's Program, the first protocol to enhance cognition and reverse decline at any age. How important is diet to the development of Alzheimer's, and what are your top diet recommendations?
So diet's surprising to me, as I trained in a classical medical school and was taught that it's all about taking a drug, and the fact that diet wasn't a big player in things like Alzheimer's disease, and that's turned out to be incorrect. So getting on the right diet, which is a plant-rich, high fiber, turns out to be very helpful for glycemic load and for detoxification, for your microbiome, on and on. It's becoming more and more clear what Alzheimer's actually represents. And it represents a response that your body is trying to make to fight various insults, including metabolic insults from the wrong food, including specific pathogens, things like P. gingivalis from your mouth, various molds from sinusitis, Borrelia that you can get from ticks. So what used to be called a disease where we have no idea what causes it, we now know that there are many different contributors, and you actually have to look at those.
Well, you talked just briefly about infections and toxins. Can you drill down a little bit on that? Regarding toxins, I was really sorry to see that a lot of these artificial fragrances can also cause Alzheimer's. And we're talking about things like perfumes and those wonderful scented candles.
Unfortunately, and especially some of these candles made from standard petroleum-based wax, are quite toxic, and they give off a number of things such as toluene and benzene that are quite toxic. So what we found is that there are three types of toxins, three groups of toxins, as I mentioned in the new book. One is the metals. Things like mercury turn out to be very important. And then other inorganic chemicals. Of course, air pollution. There's been a lot written in the last 2 years about air pollution, and it's increasing your risk for dementia. Then the second group is organic toxins, and I just mentioned the toluene and the benzene and glyphosate and formaldehyde and all of these toxic things that we are exposed to. You mentioned some of the fragrances. There's a wonderful little app called Think Dirty that'll help tell you about which fragrances are okay and which fragrances are not okay. There are all sorts of things, as you know, that are coming out that are organic, that are actually less concerning than some of the old-fashioned things that can put you at risk. And you mentioned the candles. Absolutely. Unfortunately, if you're going to be burning candles all the time, please think about beeswax, something that's a little bit less toxic. And then the third group is biotoxins. And in fact, there are various species, such as different molds, especially 5 different groups of molds, such as Stachybotrys and Penicillium and Aspergillus. These things actually are fighting for their own survival, and what they do is produce toxins. That's, of course, where we get penicillin. The toxins are meant to kill the bacteria around them. So they're competing when bacteria grow faster than the molds, so the molds are trying to kill the bacteria. No surprise. Unfortunately, these things, some of them, are quite toxic to human brains, to human nervous systems, to human immune systems, and in fact can even increase risk for cancer and kidney failure. So it's actually a good idea, and the Environmental Protection Agency has come out with an excellent test called the ERMI score, E-R-M-I, which is the EPA Relative Mold Index. And you can get an idea of where you stand, whether your home, for example, has the wrong kinds of mold, the kinds that could actually put you at risk. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of this with people who have Alzheimer's, where initially nobody knows why, and then it turns out that they have a very high exposure to some of these critical mycotoxins. And as we detox those, in fact, they can now begin to get better.
This is fascinating information. We'll take one more break and be right back with Dr. Dale Bredesen.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN Newswatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN Newswatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today.
Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come?
I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
CBN News, no filter, 24/7 news. Through the lens of faith, from natural disasters to breaking news in the Holy Land. We have access to stars in entertainment and to top newsmakers. We are fighting for your freedoms. CBN News, because truth matters. Become a CBN News member today.
Welcome back. We're talking about Alzheimer's prevention and reversal with Dr. Dale Bredesen. You mentioned tick bites. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Absolutely. And so, as you know, several decades ago, Lyme disease was discovered, and it turned out that ticks, in fact, when they bite you, have many, many different pathogens. Now, not all ticks have this. In some areas, about half of the ticks will carry this. In others, it's lower than that. But if you happen to get bitten, it's typically the deer tick that's the problem one, not so much the dog tick. And these ticks can give you a number of different pathogens. They carry even dozens of different pathogens that can be injected into you when the tick bites you. And therefore, if you have a tick bite, it's important to get treated early on to make sure that you don't develop Lyme disease. So Lyme is the common one. It's the Borrelia burgdorferi that has been described years ago, and you can treat this with antibiotics. There are also non-antibiotic approaches because, of course, again, when you're giving antibiotics, you got to be careful about your gut microbiome. You're altering that. You want to, and that's a critical player in your health, as we're finding out more and more. But beyond that, we find that many people have co-infections, and it turns out to be over half of the people who develop Lyme disease also have a co-infection with other organisms from the tick. And it can be Babesia, which is actually a cousin of malaria. Again, this is a treatable illness, but people don't look for it sometimes. Bartonella is another one. Ehrlichia is another one. Anaplasma is another one. So there are a number of these. The good news is there are tests for these. You've got to do them. You've got to look for what is actually driving the cognitive decline or risk for cognitive decline, and then treat those for best outcomes.
This is fantastic information. We're out of time. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Dr. Bredesen?
Yeah, I would just encourage everyone, you know, we've all been told over the years there's nothing you can do to delay Alzheimer's or to prevent it or to reverse the cognitive decline. That is old thinking. We've got to all come into the 21st century together. Working together, we can make Alzheimer's a rare disease just as it should be. So I would encourage everyone, if you've got it in your family, let's stop it with that generation. If you don't have it in your family, let's make sure that you never get it in your family. Let's reduce the global burden of dementia. We can do this together.
I love it to end on a positive, hopeful note like that. Once again, Dr. Bredesen, thank you so much for your work and for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Lori.
And thank you for tuning in to this edition of Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. We'll see you again next time.